If you are thinking of branching out on your own, doing something that perhaps people in your environment are not thinking about doing or haven't done, it's very, very important to find a support group or a group of people that can be a resource, a guide, and a support system.
On this episode of BBB Business Leaders Unplugged, we speak with entrepreneur Michelle Enjoli Beato. She's a small business owner, keynote speaker, and leadership coach, specializing in helping others in career growth, leadership development, and networking. Michelle started her career as a TV producer in New York City before working with some global brands, including Mercedes-Benz USA and Delta Airlines. In 2016, Michelle founded an employee resource group called Connect at Mercedes-Benz USA. The goal was to connect multi-generational and multicultural workforce to facilitate professional growth and development. She's spoken on international stages and has been featured in Entrepreneur Magazine, Thrive Global, Telemundo, LegalZoom, and Glassdoor, among others. Here's my conversation with Michelle. Michelle, welcome to BBB Business Leaders Unplugged. I'm excited to have you on air because we talked a little bit beforehand. You and I, our careers started off pretty similar. We were both in the news business for a while. But yes. I love your trajectory, like where you've gone, where you've taken yourself. And I want to learn more about that. But especially, your experiences at Mercedes when you formed Connect. But yeah, tell me a little bit about yourself and how in the world did a news producer from New York become this successful entrepreneur today?
So yeah, there's a little bit of a backstory which started like when I was really, really young, which is actually quite simple, which is I loved storytelling. So reading stories, telling stories. And then I had another love, which is coffee, which seems simple. So I'm a morning person. And so I love everything about the morning, which is like waking up early, the sunrise, breakfast food. I love coffee and I love talking to people. And so that is what actually led me to want to study journalism in school. Cause I'm like, I want to be able to do this for a living. I want to research, I want to tell stories. And so I studied journalism while I was in college, and through connecting, and it's interesting, via coffee, talking to people, doing research, I actually landed, my first job in television as a television producer when I was still in college. And so, like we had talked about a little bit prior to the episode here, was, 7 years I was working for a lot of different shows. I, was traveling a lot. It was just a lot of hustle and bustle. And so I still maintained a lot of those connections that I talk about that are so important to like build and maintain. And that's what actually led me to do two career switches, which was one, go into digital marketing, which I happened to do that when I was at Mercedes-Benz. I was doing television production for Mercedes-Benz and then made that pivot. And then a few years ago, making the pivot into career coaching and speaking.
And gosh, the timing is great because, I know that a lot of business leaders, small business owners, they're looking for opportunities coming out of 2020 to go out and reinvent themselves. Through these changes, because it's bold, it's scary to do that. It's a risk. What's been your North Star for you going through all these changes and kind of leading the way?
So for me, I say like the North Star has changed for me a couple of times. And that's something that I actually talk about with people that I coach and when I speak to, university students and then also older professional, which is your North Star is supposed to change throughout your life, right? I mean, even the conversation me and you had, our North Star was let's pursue, a job in television, that's our goal. And then as you progress throughout your career, you have different experiences. Your goal and my goal, which has always been my North Star, is to continue to grow, right? Continue to develop myself. And sometimes what that means is that your interests grow or, your lifestyle changes. And so you need to, make sure that, whatever you're pursuing adjusts to that. So I think that for me, it's always been this constant pursuit of doing the things I love, but also growing and developing. So that's been a constant.
Awesome. And I should let people know that I actually found your name in an article featured in Entrepreneur Magazine. Which is
okay.
Yeah, that's how I discovered you. And again, it does a great job of telling your story and what you're passionate about. Can you talk a little bit more about the importance of connecting with people Because it sounds easy on the surface, but actually making those authentic and personal connections with people and doing it in a way to help you advance your own professional career and personal life. Um, Talk about that. Talk about the importance of it and why it's an art.
Yeah, it's definitely an art, I will say. And it's interesting because, I talk about connecting. I'm not a big fan of the word networking. But essentially it's what I'm teaching people to do is how to network. But for me, the term networking has always been like very vague and it kind of sounded mechanical, right? Like you don't have like a manual for how to network, right? Imagine you going to an event and it's a networking event, but you walk into a room, you have a bunch of people that perhaps might be already talking to each other. How do you go and network, right? There is no set plan. And that's what I set out to do, was to kind of, create something that was easy to follow and was also very genuine. And so for me, connecting it's simple. It's just a way of you being able to, get information from others, tell others a little bit about yourself. And that's how you start building relationships. I am a believer that we all have something in common. I mean, even if you happen to be working for the same company, you live in the same neighborhood, you have something in common, right? And so building from that. And so what I did was I created a formal definition of connecting, which is an authentic attempt to learn or assist someone. And so what I teach people is just literally, it's, three basic components. It's being authentic, being you, being real. And then when you're talking to people, whether it's online at the cleaners or in a professional setting, aim to do two things. Either learn about people, there's always questions you can ask, or aim to help them if you can help them, when you start talking to them. And I think it's simple enough, and it just is something that people can use as a guideline when sometimes you can find yourself in a sticky situation and not know what to talk about, right?
So, a question, because I find myself in this situation, and maybe it's just unique to me, but I always find myself in this situation when I'm at a networking event, or a connectivity event, or whatever you want to call it, social setting, and you meet different people and you have those conversations. And I have the hardest time trying to remember someone's name, and then I always, and I try to get around it, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, what's that person's name? I try to say it 3 times in my head. Do you have any tips or advice on trying to, remember those relationships that you are creating, the people that you're meeting, for follow-up?
So I will let you in on something. I am horrible with names.
Okay, good.
That is why I believe in asking questions, because I can remember a face, or I can remember a certain detail, like this person grew up where I grew up, or we went to the same school, or like, for example, in your case, me and you, we've talked a little bit more, but hey, if we were to meet at an event, what would stick in my mind is, oh, we both started in television news production. Yeah. So I tell people all the time, and part of the curriculum that I teach, which is the first part, is connecting with yourself. We understand that about ourselves. We're not great with names. That whole authenticity part, it's okay to tell someone, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I forgot your name. What is your name again? Most people will be happy to give that to you, especially when you're in these settings where there are so many people, trying to network, trying to connect. And so I just say be real and authentic with it, like own it, because I definitely do. I'm one of those people that I am extremely horrible. I will remember certain details about someone, but forget their name.
Exactly. Good points to bring up. I want to change gears a little bit. I want to talk about you as an entrepreneur, a female entrepreneur, the struggles of getting to where you are, but then also, talk about the challenges, but then the rewards, because I think a lot of people who may have this dream of being, their own boss, starting their own business, being an entrepreneur, they can make a lot of excuses on why it won't work. So how did you get past those challenges, and what advice would you give someone today who's thinking about doing something similar?
So there are tons of challenges. And what's interesting about it is that those challenges, I think, will never stop, right? There's going to always consistently be new challenges. So for me personally, I know a lot of people who were in my shoes years ago, working in corporate America. I was in an environment where I had this idea. I wanted to help others. I was passionate about it. And so I went and decided to start doing my research, like, hey, how can I, create a business to help other people? And so I think one of the biggest challenges that I faced, and many people have faced or will face if they're thinking of doing something similar, which is the pressure of your environment, right? I was surrounded by people who, just like me, were in corporate America, right? Or, other different professions that are deemed to be very safe, right? It's a job, right? And it's something, people that were extremely passionate about what they were doing. Here I come along, and I might be at that time, which I was, one of the only people in that group to have this like weird random idea of trying to do something. I mean, I got the looks of like, is she crazy? Or, will this even work? And that's something that was one of the first challenges that I really had, was getting over the fact that my immediate environment, one, didn't understand what I wanted to do. They were supportive and as best as they could be, but it's definitely not the support you need to branch out and do something. And so what I would say, I was able to overcome that challenge by looking for those support systems that today exist everywhere. I mean, they exist both in local organizations that can help you, but they also exist online. I mean, I'm a member of numerous Facebook groups that are for entrepreneurs, things of that nature, but it's just looking for that support system, because on the journey to entrepreneurship, you're never going to get the kind of support that you need from others. You have to, have that internal motivation and seek it out every single day.
And how do you keep that fire going? I know you can, sometimes it ebbs and flows, you're roaring, you're ready to go, but on the days where you don't feel as motivated, I'm curious what you personally do to keep the drive going.
So I think it's a lot to do with my environment. And so what I try to do is, again, it's a lot is such a reminder. I'm a very motivated person. Like, I get up early. I'm a 5 a.m.er. I'm up, I'm early. I'm most productive during the morning. And so what I tend to do is, like, one thing I do is, exercise. I make sure that I do the things that I really like. So I've recently, for the last 12 months, have become an avid lover of podcasts. And I can't get enough of like podcast people that are in the same space that I'm in. And so I consistently try to surround myself with things that will motivate me and keep me motivating. So it's whatever I'm reading, whatever I'm listening to, the people that I hang around with. That's one thing too. That's another challenge with entrepreneurship. You need that positive energy. You need people who are also very motivated. And so, making sure that I'm around that energy is also what keeps me motivated.
You're giving me great ammunition for our rapid fire section. So I'm just adding.
Oh, okay.
So this is great. So I've got a few follow-ups on what you just talked about. I watched some of the videos that you have posted on your website when you were giving speeches or presentations, and I've looked at your blog. It must be so rewarding for you personally to see the difference that you're making when you connect with people and you've helped them, whether it's a presentation that you gave or if you're coaching someone. Can you share a little bit about the gratification that you receive personally when you are able to actually help someone based off of a business that you started on your own? You're making a difference.
No, definitely. Well, so that is what motivates me as well, right? It's because I get to see like the fruits of my labor. And so for me, what's gratifying is, what also keeps me motivated and I get so much gratification. I initially started this business with an idea that I thought I was going to motivate and help, whether it was people in college, right, who were confused about what to do, how to get their first job, or people in those early stages of their career. And so I primarily focused on that. And what I found throughout my research was we need that motivation, we need that direction at every single point of our careers. I mean, if there's something that, the last year has taught us, right, this environment is ever changing. And so for me, being able now to work with people from all different groups at all different ages of their life and seeing them transform and believe in themselves again, that to me has like been hugely motivating and also satisfying again.
We had a really good conversation this last month with a gentleman who used to be head of diversity inclusion at Starbucks, and we talked about D&I. His name is Dr. Tony Byers, and how businesses and leaders need to really embrace different voices, different points of view, and bring them to the table for these conversations, and how that's going to be really important for business in 2021 and beyond. I see a connection here, obviously. So, by having these connections with people and how you help entrepreneurs or young leaders make these connections, can you kind of bring in the importance of D&I or DE&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion? How is that important, and should that be top of mind for people who really want to make meaningful connections?
Oh, definitely. It's something that I talk about not just from, the point of view of a professional, right? Wanting to grow and develop in their career, but I also have, a side curriculum, I call it, that I've also developed specifically for leaders. Because one of the reasons why I also started this business was when I was at Mercedes-Benz USA, I actually founded a business resource group called Connect. And it was because I was noticing this. So we were working in a company that was not just multi-generational, it was also multicultural. And so when you are working in such a diverse environment, I mean, I believe today, some companies have 5 different generations trying to work together, trying to communicate with each other. And so not just even from like a cultural perspective, but even from a generational perspective, there are so many differences. And so for me, I think it's important, not just from a, professional standpoint, but from a leadership standpoint, to be mindful and learn how to connect with people who, one, may come from a different place that you came from, may think differently, might be at all different levels of the organization. And to me, a connected organization is an organization that's going to grow, because without that connection among your employees, how will you be able to face all the challenges that we've been seeing even in the last 12 months, right? The way companies work change, what's being talked about work has changed, how we work is changing, where we work. And so that, I think, is very, very critical to, make sure that you are building those solid connections so that, your company or your teams can face the challenges that are going to come, that exist, and that are going to come in the future.
I love that answer. At BBB, we're a standards-based organization, so we've been around for more than 100 years, and our values are trust, and our standards are trust. It's ethics. It's advertising honestly. It's being honest, safeguarding privacy. But I want to go back to trust and honesty and integrity. Those values, are those values critical in building meaningful relationships or meaningful connections with people?
Oh, definitely. I mean, you can't have a meaningful connection with someone without those things. I mean, just even talking again about, diversity and inclusion, or, some environments where potentially there are certain groups that don't feel included, right? Or don't perhaps feel that their values or their perspectives are being considered. And sometimes, I find, especially with my research and the work that I do today, a lot of times, if you have someone who doesn't have a connection with someone with who they should, right? Whether it's their leader or a colleague, 99.9% of the time, it's because there is a lack of trust. Because if there is no trust, right, there is going to be, that affects your communication. That affects your ability to work together. So trust, I think, is just, 99.9% of it, right? The next thing you do is you have to actually take action in order to, have a connection. But trust is definitely the foundation of any meaningful relationship.
Awesome. I'd high five you right now if I could. So we'll just do it on there.
High five.
Yeah. I love that answer. Thank you. Talk about leadership. You hear buzzwords, and not to say that they're bad descriptors for leadership. But I'm curious, for you, what is your best leadership quality?
I would say it's connecting with people. I mean, I will say that, I attribute, the reason why I do the work that I do is because I realize that it's a natural talent of mine. And I think that I attribute that to one word and one word only, which I think is so important for parents, for people is exposure. Like, so since I was a child, I was raised in a very diverse environment. And so, being able to, even before I started school, I spoke a different language. My family had friends from all different parts of the world. Sometimes we don't realize what an advantage some of us have when we grow up in a diverse environment. And so I definitely think that that's something that for me made it so easy for me to be able to connect with people from all walks of life, because I have that thorough understanding. There is some way, shape, or form we can connect at some level. And to me, I get excited, and to me, it's a challenge to figure out what that is. Hence, my producer, my love of producing and researching is to find out what that is.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so for our listeners who are feeling inspired right now and they're taking notes feverishly, listening to what you're saying, I'm curious, if they have a question like, all right, how in the world am I supposed to get started today? We live in a COVID world, even though we see the end of the tunnel, the light at the end of the tunnel, but I'm not able to go out and network the way I should, or I think I need to. How can I get started today by making meaningful connections with people, even if it's on the computer?
No, definitely. I think today we are living in an era that we've never seen before, because prior to COVID, connecting online was, if you knew someone, you can make that connection. But I think that it wasn't as common or as acceptable to reach out to someone, especially someone you did not know, because you were busy out going to an office, right? Connecting via in-person events. And so COVID, I think, made everyone take a step back and have to use, right, any digital means necessary to connect. So I think there's a lot more people that are now open to connections, whether it's sending someone a good note, a personalized note on LinkedIn. And so what I would say is, and I view connection as two things. In order for you to authentically connect and build and maintain good relationships, you have to start with the baseline. And I always say that it's the connection with yourself. Take a step back and figure out, who are you today? So if you're a person who happens to be at mid-career or later on in their career, who you were 20 years ago, who you were 5 years ago is very, very different in terms of potentially your interests, your future goals, your ambitions. And so you have to take some time to reconnect with that part of yourself first. Identify, where am I? Who am I? Where do I want to go? And then what I would suggest is taking inventory of your LinkedIn profile, your current network, and then figuring out, okay, well, who are some people that I think would be extremely beneficial to connect with that could give me some insight into whatever my goal is for the future. But definitely the first step is taking some time to reconnect with yourself, for sure.
I love that. Yeah, because I think so many of us are in just kind of robotic. We're doing the thing that we think we're supposed to be doing. It's paying the bills. We're just kind of moving along. But to actually go back and do an audit of yourself to figure out, is this the person I really want to be?
Exactly. And sometimes like there's a popular quote, I believe, or something that says like, you can't get to where you're going, or if you don't know where that is, right? You can't get to your destination unless you know what that destination is. And so you have to sometimes take note of it and also become self-aware, right? If whatever your future goal is, whether it's to get a promotion, whether it's to move, in your company or move outside of the company, you've got to have, like you mentioned before, that North Star so that you can prepare to get there.
I think that, tell me if you disagree, but I think that first step that you just outlined, that has to be the hardest part.
Oh, it definitely is. It definitely is, because it involves a lot of self-awareness, right? It involves, so I talk about this a lot in my work, which is, personal branding is one of the pillars that I focus on with people. And, Jeff Bezos was famously quoted as saying, your brand, your personal brand is what people say when you are not in the room. And how true is that? I mean, how many people work every day to build this, branding, whether it's their pictures, the way they promote themselves online, and have no clue what their personal brand is. When you walk out of that room, that feeling that you leave people with, that is your personal brand, not the feeling you thought you left them with.
I could talk to you for another hour. This is great. I am going to move into our rapid fire questions. So I'm just going to fire off some random questions, and I've added some to the list based off of our conversation today. So
should I be scared?
No, it's fun. It's fun. It's the Andy Cohen style.
Okay.
So you said you're a coffee drinker. You love coffee. You go to Starbucks. What do you order? Or you go to a coffee shop, and what do you order? I should say that.
Yes, any coffee shop. My go-to is a tall skim latte, or a skim latte, because tall, I think, is kind of a Starbucks term, right?
That works. It's universal. Good. Who's your mentor?
I have many. So actually, I have mentors from my grandmother and my mom being my first mentors to people that I've worked with. So I actually don't consider like myself having a mentor. I have mentors that are younger than me and mentors that are older than me.
Awesome. Good, good. Your best boss ever.
I just reconnected with her last year. She was my supervisor at my first internship. She has been the best boss. I thought back then she was the best boss. Till today, many years later, she's still the best boss I ever had.
That's great. Cool. And you said you're a podcast listener. So I'm curious, what podcast are you listening to right now?
So I love all different types of podcasts, but I listen to, Trent Sheldon is one of my favorite podcasts to listen to. He is a motivational speaker. He founded a program called Rehab, which is rehabbing your life. And he just has like this passion. So I've definitely been listening to his podcast lately. They kind of get me revved up when I'm like on a morning run. So he's definitely been one of my favorites.
And I noticed that you said you're a 5 a.m.er. Have you read the 5 a.m. Club?
No, but it's on my list by Robin Sharma, right? It's
Yes.
on my list.
Yes, I'm reading that now. So I've been trying to get up at 5 a.m. So anyway, I'm like, oh, I wonder if you're part of that group. So there's
Yes, no, but I probably will be once I get to it.
So I guess the rapid fire question then would be, all right, 5 a.m., your alarm goes off. What's the first thing on your list to do?
I grab coffee.
Yeah, it's just good coffee.
Because as much as a morning person as I am, I still need coffee to start working.
Me too. Me too. What inspires you every day?
I think people inspire me. I'm a person that I've learned to curate my environment in a way where, the people that I spend the most time with are people that are important to me. The people that I, choose to meet and speak to, inspire me, whether it's through their work, whether it's, through their actions, whatever it is. But I definitely am inspired by people for sure.
Last question before we wrap up. What's your next big idea, if you can tell us?
My next big idea, so I don't have it identified yet, but I want to find a way to reach more people and create a type of environment where one, it's affordable, but also a very open environment where people can come in and either ask or discuss real questions, real issues that they're having as a professional, as a business, as an entrepreneur, but just have like a really great environment where people can learn from each other, connect with each other. So I have a few ideas on how to create that, but I'm still working through it.
Great. Awesome. Hey, it's been a blast. So thank you so much, Michelle. I really appreciate it. And I want to give you the last word here. If there's any parting advice that you could give our listeners, again, most of them small business owners, business leaders, any parting advice for getting through the rest of the year?
What I would say is, I think for advice is one, try to enjoy the ride, enjoy the unknown. I think if there's one thing that we've learned in the last year is that there are so many unknowns in the world. And I think that it's very, very important to one, focus on yourself, focus on figuring out where you want to go, and just embrace the unknown.
There you have it. Awesome. Michelle, thank you for being on BBB Business Leaders Unplugged. Your information and your insights are invaluable. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, David.